Hare Krishna devotees, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, Text 7. Before moving on to the verses, offer some small prayer. Om Atyana Timirandasya Jana Shavakaya Chakshurunlitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Kadamahyam Tadati Shantantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Samjatam Sahaganam Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Kandan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Dade Davaneshwari Ishabhanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunvadi Paschatya Vikshatarini Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gandharva Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyatam Tato Jayam Virhaye. So today's verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, Text 7. And this chapter is titled as Kapila's Instructions on the Execution of Devotional Service. We'll read the text. Etair Anyaischa Patibhir Manotushtam Asatpatam Buddhya Yunjita Sanakair Jita Pranohi Atandritha. One more time. Etair Anyascha Patibhir Manotushtam Asatpatam Buddhya Yunjita Sanakair Jita Pranohi Atandritha. Synonyms. Etai by these, Anyai by other, Cha and Patibihi processes, Manaha the mind, Dushtam contaminated, Asat Padham on the path of material enjoyment, Buddhya by the intelligence, Yunjita one must control, Sanakai gradually, Jita Prana the life will be fixed. He indeed, Atandritha alert. Translation. By these processes or any other two processes, one must control the contaminated, unfulfilled mind, which is always attracted by material enjoyment, and thus fix himself in thought of the Supreme Personality of God. Purport, friends, student of this Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Etair Anyascha. The general yoga process entails observing the rules and regulations, practicing the different sitting postures, concentrating the mind on the vital circulation of the air, and then thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the pastimes. This is the general process of yoga. The same concentration can be achieved by other recommended processes, and therefore Anyayascha, other methods also can be applied. The essential point is that the mind, which is contaminated by mental contraction, has to be buried and concentrated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It cannot be fixed on something void or impersonal. For this reason, so-called yoga processes of void and impersonalism are not recommended in any standard yoga shastra. The real yogi is a devotee because his mind is always concentrated on the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is the topmost yoga system. So we will discuss about text 7, then we will move on to the text 8, which are all connected. So to the context of this verse, in chapter 25 of this canto, Mother Devahuti, after he felt the after his husband Kardamani left the ashram where he was living, she felt despondent and starts taking the instruction from Lord Kapila. And as part of those instructions, she actually asks 4 questions. Question 1 was she wants to know about the principle of Aham Mameti, because she has been struggling with, currently in the story, she has been struggling with Mother Devaki is struggling with the idea of Aham Mameti because her husband left. She was not able to digest that. And she wants to know about Jiva and Prakriti, how Jiva gets attached to Prakriti or the midline. That's question 1. And question 2, he asks about Bhakti Yoga. And question 3, she asks about Jnana or Sankhya Yoga. And question 4 is about the yoga itself, the Dhyana Yoga, which chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. So now Kapila Deva answers question 1 and question 2, both are in chapter 25, which is glories of devotees. The details about the Bhakti Yoga and the crux of the Bhakti Yoga is association of devotees and the realization. We'll develop a desire to perform Bhakti Yoga and move towards the goal. In question 3 is Jnana Yoga and Sankhya Yoga. So Kapila Muni explains it in the 2 chapters, chapter 26 and chapter 27, where he describes about the creation of the material world and all the elements of the material world and how Jiva gets entangled in the material world. So to do the perspective of the Jnana, it's universal form and all these are described there. Which is actually the very most popular section, like Kapila's Sankhya philosophy. So chapter 26 and 27 form that core of it. Then Mother Devati also asks about the Dhyana Yoga, or the Ashtanga Yoga system. So chapter 28 is where Lord Kapila begins explaining about the Ashtanga Yoga. And the first, I think, 12 verses about the first 12 verses about limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, basically details of the Ashtanga Yoga process. And
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I mean, other devotees are able to hear him clearly. I mean, Prabhu?
I don't see other devotees. How many are there?
Yeah, actually, it's not very clear for me either. Prabhu, maybe it's your mic, something to do. It's not as clear as you are normally.
Okay. Changes. If I speak loud, is it okay right now?
Yes,
I
that
think
is.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still slow?
No,
No, I think this is good.
this is good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, seeing that chapter 28 just deals with the Ashtanga Yoga and the Dhyana Yoga system, which is very similar to the yoga system that Lord Krishna explains in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. Now, verses until 6, up to 6, because today is our verses 7 and 8. Until 6, actually, Lord Kapila describes all the 8 different elements of the Ashtanga Yoga practice until the level of Samadhi. Okay? So now he kinds of trying to elaborate on those 8 in the next verses from 7 to 12. Right? But today we are only discuss 7 and 8. So since he has described all the 8 links of Ashtanga Yoga, now he is saying in concluding, by these processes, which are the 8 processes of Ashtanga, links of Ashtanga Yoga, or any other true process, one must control the contaminated, unbridled mind, which is always attracted by material enjoyment, and thus fix himself in the thought of the Supreme Personality of God. So, the key here for me is one must control the contaminated, unbridled mind, which is always attracted by the material enjoyment. So, for a conditioned living entity, somehow this mind becomes the key or the pivot in modern terminology. Pivot means central point, right? Where everything is getting pivoted, revolves around. Like for a door when you are coming into the house, you have to open the door, right? Door revolves around here, right? So that means pivot is the center of the door. So similarly, the mind is the center for the yoga process, not just the Ashtanga yoga process, any yoga process in general. Because in chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, I will just read Krishna says, 15:7, Mamai Vamso Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Mana Sashtanindriyani, Prakriti Sthani Karshati. Like the living entity who is actually the Amsha of the Lord, part and parcel of the Lord, but he's struggling in this material world. Okay? Struggling with what? Struggling with including the mind, Sashta Indriyani. 5 indriyas, the senses, and 6th one is the controlling sense, which controls the 5 senses. If you see the analogy that I think Chaitanya Chandra gives is if you see our hand, the palm, the 5 fingers are attached to the palm, right? So the palm, huh? It's not maybe so Chaitanya Prabhu gives this analogy of mind being the palm and the senses being the 5 fingers. That means 5 fingers are very closely attached to the palm, right? In fact, for the function, form becomes very important. So similarly, for the senses, they operate through the medium of the mind. Right? So senses, they're not dead in a sense, because that Krishna explains in the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The senses, non-object senses, are higher than the body. The body is almost like a dead matter. Right? It doesn't have any cognition. But senses have some cognitive power, so they are in a way higher than the body itself. But mind is actually higher than the senses, because mind, the senses operate through the mind. So that is explained in the chapter 3. Let us. Yeah, chapter 3, text 42. Indriyani pranayahu indriyetiya paramanaha manastu parabuddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. So here, the anatomy of our gross body and subtle body, including the soul, is mentioned here by Krishna. So the senses are superior to the body, the matter. Right? So Indriyani Paranyaha. Then above Indriyas is Manaha. So because mind is controlling Indriyas. Then Buddhi is above Manasa. And the soul is actually even beyond the Buddhi. So this is the hierarchy Krishna gives in a normal living entity who is not conditioned. Right? But for a conditioned living entity, the order becomes topically, because instead of mind, instead of intelligence, the mind is more strong. The mind starts controlling the intelligence. Right? So that's why conditioned living entity. Hmm? So that's what the translation speaks here, that one must control the contaminated, unbridled mind, which is always attracted by material enjoyment. Means, so in a conditioned state, the mind becomes the most strong, and Arjuna actually speaks about this in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, saying that uh, mind is controlling the mind is more powerful. Is actually more difficult than controlling the wind, because it's very, very powerful. He says, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. That verse where he speaks. Let me see. Yeah, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Pramati balavad dridam. So, first of all, mind wanders, right? And bringing it back is very difficult, because it's uh, it's very strong. Right? And when it's not controlled, it's actually very difficult to bring mind back. So that means it's an unbridled mind, like which is not able to control. And when mind is not controlled, mind becomes the enemy. So these are the teachings that we learn from Bhagavad Gita, and obviously uh, Kapila Muni is explaining here that the mind is the central focus of the yoga system, and one has to control the mind ultimately and focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Samadhi at the final stage of the yoga system, right? The mind has to be controlled and completely fix himself in the thought of the Supreme Personality. Let us read what Prabhupada is saying here. The general yoga process entails observing the rules and regulations, practicing the different sitting postures, concentrating the mind on the vital circulation of the air, and then thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Vaikuntha pastime. So Prabhupada covered all the 8 elements in one sentence here. Okay. So basically the Ashtanga Yoga process itself, asanas, rules and regulations, yama niyama, dharana, pratyahara, and onto the stage of um, samadhi. This is the general yoga process. The same concentration can be achieved by other recommended processes, and therefore anyascha, other methods also apply. So anyascha is used in this word. Either this Ashtanga yoga process or any other process, the mind should be controlled. So that is so. Prabhupada is saying the essential point is that mind, which is contaminated by the material attraction, has to be brittle and concentrated on the Supreme Personality and God. So bridle, when I hear the term bridle, the horses are bridled with the ropes, right? So through the noses, those are the bridles where you control the horses. So the mind has to be somehow controlled at the bridle. That's the idea Prabhupada is presenting here, which is actually difficult to control, but that is the goal of the yoga system. And he's bringing an important point here, saying that the mind cannot be fixed on something void or impersonal, because as per Kapila Muni, ultimately the mind has to be concentrated and fully meditating upon on the personal form of the Lord, so which we know in the previous texts. Okay? But nowadays, the more popular way of meditating is on the impersonal or void. So Prabhupada is actually kind of discouraging that system. For this reason, so-called yoga practice of voidism and impersonalism are not recommended in the standard yoga shastra. The real yogi is a devotee because his mind is always concentrated on the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is the topmost yoga system. And now, this sentence is exactly similar to the last verse of chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, of all the yogis, who is the topmost yogi? Basically, Bhakti yogi, because he, of course, in the mature stage of Bhakti yoga, in the prema stage, the devotee is always thinking about Krishna. He is always in the samadhi of Krishna, and his pastimes, name, form, okay, pastimes of the Lord Krishna. So that is the highest system. Okay. We'll move on to the next verse, text 8. Suchodeshe pratisthapya vichitasana asanam tasmin swasti samasina nujukaya samabhyase. Translation: after controlling one's mind and sitting postures, one should spread a seat in a secluded and sanctified place, sit there in an easy posture, keeping the body erect, and practice breath control. One should practice. Purport: sitting in an easy posture is called swasti samasena. It is recommended in the yoga scripture that one should put the soles of the feet between the two thighs and ankles and sit straight. That posture will help one to concentrate his mind on the Supreme Personality of God. This very process is also recommended in Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter. It is further suggested that one Sit in a secluded, sanctified spot. The seat should consist of deer skin and kusha grass topped with cotton. So, after explaining the goal of the yoga process in the previous text, which is to control the mind and focus the mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the perfecting stage. Now, Kapila Muni goes into details of each of the 8 limbs that he has mentioned previously, up to text 6. So, this particular verse focuses on the asana. What are the requirements of asana? Because asana is the third limb, right? Yama Niyama asana. So, first one is controlling the mind and the sitting postures. So, obviously, that is the one should do that as part of the asana process. And where should one should do that asana process? In a clean place, right? So, this is a secluded and sanctified place. So that's what Prabhupada is writing it as. And sitting there in an easy posture. How we should sit in an easy posture. So, easy posture, Prabhupada gives the details of here. The posture is called Swastika Asana, Swasti Samasana, practice of Swasti, Swastikasana, one has to do. And then I'm not sure if it's the same as Padmasana, but one sits with the legs folded and bring the feet above the thighs. Looks like that is the one here. And keeping the body straight. And when you sit in this posture, one should keep the body straight, erect. And more details are given in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada is also explaining sit on the place where deer skin should be there on, and Kusagrasha is spread on top with the cotton. So that's where the yogi sits and do this practice, start practicing the breath control. Yeah. So text 8 is just dealing with the more details, further details of the requirements of asana process, how and what to do in the asana process, and what is the goals of the asana process, how to achieve them. So these are more detailed one. But the key is the previous text 7, where controlling the mind, which is actually not all easy to control the mind. That's why Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita that it is actually easier to control the wind than control the mind. So that means controlling the mind must be really a challenging task, a condition of living entity. And I remember some time back, I don't know who, but the analogy was given. In fact, the analogy is actually coming from Upanishads, that the condition of the mind. Mind is like a monkey. It's not just a monkey, drunken monkey, and it's not just drunken monkey, and drunken monkey um, bitten by scorpion, and not just drunken monkey bitten by scorpion, but drunken monkey bitten by scorpion haunted by a ghost, right? So many layers of description is given to the mind, because the similar description from this in the Bhagavad Gita is Chanchalam, mind is flickering, always moving around. Because And actually, I'm just remembering in physics, there's a concept called unstable equilibrium, right? So when there is a small disturbance, then the system doesn't come back to its original position. It just uh, goes far away from the state. Similarly, the mind, if it's trying to focus on some uh, object or let us say for us a holy name, but the mind, uh, it's we are trying to keep it in equilibrium in that position. But once it gets disturbed, a small disturbance, that's all. Mind is gone so many miles and miles away from where we are focusing holy name. So it's actually very difficult to bring it back. Whereas a controlled mind is where even if you disturb, it will immediately come back to the equilibrium position. So in fact, actually, Prabhupada uses that word. Yeah, Prabhupada calls it artificially one may establish a mental equilibrium. So mental equilibrium is like one is trying to forcefully make the mind stable, but a conditioned mind is never stable. It's an unstable condition. Like a small disturbance, it will be very difficult to bring it back to the equilibrium position. So I was just remembering that. Um, and it's also very strong in the sense because once we get the thought, disturbing thought, and the mind fixated on it, it's actually very difficult to bring that mind back to the where we want to focus because it's so adamant in that thought of where it want to go. So and that's why it's also compared to the mad elephant. It's very difficult to control the mad elephant and bring it back. So similarly, the mind is very difficult to control and bring it back to where we want to focus or concentrate. So, and with that, I want to just conclude today's discussion. So, Kapila Muni, as part of the explaining the yoga system to Mother Devavati, he explains the 8 limbs of the yoga system in the previous text, and in the text 7 and 8, he's trying to conclude in text 7 particularly, saying that ultimate goal of the yoga system is controlling the mind. Thus, mind is the fulcrum or the pivot of yoga system, central point of the yoga system. And if mind is controlled, then rest of everything will be controlled. And ultimately, after controlling the mind, the goal is to focus the mind on the form of the Lord in the state of the samadhi. So that is the goal of the yoga system finally. And text 8 talks about the specific limb asana, details of the asana, how and where one should practice this asanas and start controlling the mind and the breath in this by after doing proper asana. So with that, I want to stop here, and if you have any further discussions, we can have, or any corrections, please go ahead, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. This is such a so very relevant for me. Um, Practically, the yoga asana steps are, of course, recommended, but I don't know, in this, these times where we're kind of split in so many different ways, how to really achieve that, from a practical standpoint, trying to think, um, focusing the mind on the Maha Mantra. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's, feels so guilty that it just, here are my beads are like, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj says that, you're just counting. And that seems to happen so often, most of the time, actually, while the mind has been traveling so in so many different places. But yeah, it's just wondering about that.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you very much for bringing that point. The Ashtanga Yoga system by itself, it's not practical, I think, in this age. It is meant for Satya Yoga. But certainly those elements uh, are important in the sense, um, for us, we chant holy name and we hear Bhagavatam discourses or the classes, read Bhagavatam. So they're all in a way need a concentrated mind, right? So it becomes imperative that one should sit in a proper place, um, and where we will be not too comfortable uh, or not too stressed. That's why they say we have to build up a place where build in the sense in a home, in the home, where we chant in a particular place, where we build some kind of energy in that place. So whenever we come to that place, uh, our mind is naturally focused. So in that sense, I'm speaking. So certainly the elements of yoga system are required to practice higher stages of chanting holy name. And if we attend Sachinandan Maharaj, or I never attended particular personally, but I heard few classes from YouTube. So they emphasize importance of sitting posture, and in fact, he brings the concept of aligning the body, mind, soul, uh, and the heart. It's essentially in a way parallel to this asana process, where you sit and in a particular way and you align your mind and then start focusing on the holy name, right? Hearing the holy name. So uh, we can certainly use those elements in our bhakti process. And thank you for bringing that point, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. I mean, I think definitely those, practical points are, should keep in mind. But I feel like for me, it's like it's just going to go on, this whole challenge and struggle. Thank you, Prabhu. Nice class, Krishna. I think I know you had a little bit of an audio challenge. I mean, for me, my voice is totally down after this sore throat. You take care as well. You are also clearing your throat a lot.
Yeah, but probably it's my mic. I think I don't know
Yeah,
what changed.
I think now it is much, much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
no one else, we will stop here. Thank you very much, devotees, again for giving me this opportunity to read Srimad Bhagavatam. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। हरे कृष्ण।